I didn't realize what had happened to me. I had no reference point for near-death experience. Didn't know the terminology, hadn't read anything. We didn't have internet or ways to get information around the way we do now. I couldn't tell my priest that I was hearing voices. He would have thought I was a heretic. And I couldn't go to my doctor. He would have probably put me on a 72-hour hold. Here was my first experience. My sister and I went to dinner in this restaurant, and I'm hearing all of this cacophony of sound as we're standing there waiting for a table. And it's like, what is that? And as it's getting closer, more defined, it's people's thoughts and emotions, and they're just flying at me, and I'm hearing all of them. It's from everybody that I'm seeing in the restaurant. All of their feelings and emotions are now talking at me. And I'm going, oh my God, am I losing my mind?
These videos answer a lot of questions about why we're here, but I'm guessing you still have a few of your own. So join me for Wake Up Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern, where I'll answer your questions live. And I might even have a few surprise guests show up. Together, we're waking up the collective. Thank you for watching. My guest today is Dianne Shermen, who grew up in the Catholic religion and at one time even entertained becoming a nun. However, she had a near-death experience, which changed everything about what she thought was true in religion. So, Dianne, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us
Thank
today.
you, Lori. It's lovely to be here with you, and it's lovely to meet you.
Oh, it's so great to meet you. I really loved your NDE experience, but maybe more than that, I loved all of the things that happened to you after your experience and all of these abilities that came online for you. So we definitely want to talk about that. But I think it's probably best to start at the beginning. So I would love for you to just share your NDE in any way you'd like to share it.
I appreciate that. Sometimes I'm not sure if I should do the long version or the short version, so I'll just start and see where spirit takes me.
And that's exactly what I was going to tell you to do.
Okay,
Perfect.
good. So 1981, which is a very long time ago, um, um, I went in for orthoscopic surgery on my left knee. I had had a swimming accident in the ocean with my husband where I caught my foot. I was coming out of the water. There was a lot of undertow and I was getting really tired. And I caught my foot in the sand because it was a walking up onto the beach. It wasn't flat. And I caught my foot in the sand as the wave hit me. And then it turned my body and pulled me back into the water. And what it did is it totally dislocated my knee, and I tore cartilage and ligaments, chipped bone fragments, all kinds of nasty bits. And I was struggling in the water because I couldn't tread water. All I could do was hold my knee and yelp. Luckily, my husband at the time was a ex water polo player, and he was very comfortable in the undertow and whatnot, and he, scooped me up and got me out of there. And our dear friends who we were staying with were down in Acapulco, um, took me to their chiropractor, who I didn't speak any Spanish at the time. I spoke French in school. Um, had me hold on to the sides of this. It looked like a daybed, and he grabbed my foot and ankle and went like that, and I passed out. And he did more damage than good. Anyway, years later, I decided to have surgery. I didn't have surgery when I first had this accident because I was a working model, and having that big patella scar was not okay in my work. So I waited until they had the arthroscopic surgery pretty perfected, which they did 10 years later. And I had that arranged, and I was feeling good about it. I'm sitting on the gurney, and all of a sudden I started to rack. Literally, my body was just dancing. And a nurse came by me and she said, "Would you like a warmed blanket?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love that," because I was really uncomfortable, and my body would not stop racking. And a few minutes later, we went into the OR, and they gave me whatever they gave me. And I went out, but I went out before the general anesthesia went in. It was just some precursor thing that they gave me. And they had put another warm blanket on me, and the combination of those things, I just went out, which is kind of interesting to go out before you have the general anesthesia. So surgery went fine, went a lot longer than they had thought, because at that time they didn't have the MRIs or the CAT scans to see what was going on inside. And so they had a lot more to repair once they got in there. And so I'm in recovery, and I'm just kind of, coming back into myself, and I'm hearing a lot of noise in the bed next to me, and trying not to pay attention because I just want to focus on me and not whatever that trauma is. And I'm hearing them say to the person next to me, "Diane, wake up. Diane, wake up. Diane, wake up." And I'm thinking to myself, how weird that we both have the same name. And I went on to wherever I was within myself. And the next thing I heard was, "Dianne Shermen, wake up. Dianne Shermen, wake up." And now they've got my attention, because I'm thinking, oh my God, have they done the wrong surgery on the wrong person? What have they done to me? What's going on there? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm waving to them. And they're like 3 people working on this Dianne Shermen. And I'm thinking, hello, I'm here, I'm fine. I'm Dianne Shermen. What's happening? Next thing I know, I'm standing at the foot of the bed of this patient that they're working on, and I'm looking up at her, and I realize it's me. But I'm looking down at me, and I see me standing there in my hospital gown, bare feet. And I look up again, and I see her, but I'm not connected to her in any way, shape, or form. It's like totally neutral. I always use the same expression because it's the only thing that seems to fit for me. Is like somebody said, "Please pass the salt." There's no energy on that. It's just a thought, a request, whatever. And that's how I felt about her. I felt no connection to that body that was me. Next thing I know, I'm up in the corner of the room overlooking what's going on. And I'm interested, but I'm not invested in what's happening. It's like, okay, this is what's going on, but it didn't have any meaning for me, which at the time I thought was very odd. But of course, I didn't think it was so odd that I'm now up in the corner of the room looking down on everybody. It kind of felt like, okay, next thing I know, I'm being pulled out of that. And now I'm being pushed into this blackness, this abject blackness. And as a kid, I was terrified of the dark, because it didn't feel safe in my house to be in the dark. And I thought to myself, and I was also terrified of being blind, which means you couldn't see what was coming at you or who was coming at you. So I thought, if I can just find a glimmer of light, just one glimmer of light, I'll know I'm not blind, and I'll know I'm safe and okay. So I'm hyper focused in this pure blackness to find that glimmer of light. And I find it. And now I'm hyper focused on the glimmer of light. And it just, as I'm focused on it, it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And finally, it's all that's around me is this light, this white light. And I say white with a caveat. It has every color of the rainbow in it. It has shimmer to it. It has this glistening effect. It's diaphanous. It's loving on such a deep level. And I'm just watching. I'm just experiencing what's happening to me in this light. And it's like time has stood still. I'm just in this. And as I'm aware of this, I'm now moving through it. And as I come to the edge of it, or the end of it, and I come through, and I'm sort of floating And I thought that was weird because I looked down and I could see I was off the ground. I was levitating off the ground. But it didn't feel odd. It felt like, oh, this is so cool. This is so fun, you know? So as the front of this white diaphanous light opens, there are two rows of monks in brown monk's robes with the hoods up. And I'm floating through them. And the one at the end in front on the left steps forward and says, "You cannot stay. It's not your time. You must go back." And I looked at him incredulously and thought, I just got here. How can you send me back? I I have never felt so loved, so safe, so cherished. How can you send me back? I've waited my whole life to have this. I've been married. I have a child. I've had all these experiences. Um, how can you send me back when this is what I've always wanted to attain or be with or feel? And he said, "It's not your time. You must go back. You have a child." And I started thinking about my daughter, who was 6 years old at the time. And I thought, who would care for her and love her the way I wanted her to be loved? My husband was my ex-husband for a reason. My parents were both gone. My sister was not mentally or emotionally stable enough to be a parent. And I didn't have close enough friends that I trusted to entrust her to. And in that moment that I'm thinking about her, back in my body. And when I became aware uh, of where I was after that, I was in my hospital room with another patient, and she'd had arthroscopic surgery, but she didn't have quite the amount of repair that I did. And she was in so much pain, and I wasn't. And they had me up walking that night, and I went home the next morning, and they hadn't gotten her out of bed at all. And I wasn't on pain meds. And I know that was part of the gift of spirit with my near-death experience. And when I saw my doctor, he said to me that he had never seen anybody heal as fast as I did. So I didn't realize what had happened to me. I had no reference point for near-death experience. Didn't know the terminology, hadn't read anything. I think Raymond Moody's book had been out a couple of years maybe. But you know, we didn't have internet or ways to get information around the way we do now. It would have been word of mouth, or it would have been in the newspaper, and those things weren't discussed. And at that time, I couldn't tell my priest that I was hearing voices, a cacophony of voices and feelings and whatnot. He would have thought I was a heretic. And I couldn't go to my doctor. He would have probably put me on a 72-hour hold. So I didn't have the support at that time that I needed and wanted, that everybody has now, thank God. But I was, you know, Spirit always leads us where we need to be. And I was led to two wonderful women who helped me navigate what had gone on and where I was going with it and what to do with it. And so that's when my life really started. It was in meeting them and working with them.
Wow. All right. I would love to ask you some questions about this NDE.
Sure.
The first one is the blackness. So you're in this space of pure blackness, and you said you kept looking for the glimmer of light. You kept looking for the glimmer of light. What do you think made you even have the wherewithal to understand that there would be a glimmer of light?
Well, I don't know that I understood that there would be. There was just hope, a deep amount of hope. But as I look back, you know, it's 40 some years ago, uh, it was my knowing on some level that going to the light, being in the light, we are the light, we carry the light, you know, didn't know all of that then in the verbiage, but I knew it intuitively on some level. I had been a really pious kind of kid in my religious beliefs. My parents were not at all. But I felt a connection to the saints, you know, Lives of the Saints, which was a book about like that. For a kid with dyslexia, it was kind of my favorite book. And I had statues of some of the saints and whatnot. And there was just that feeling about it, that there was a knowingness. Don't know how or why, but there was a knowingness.
And you
So
and you didn't say, but who or what did you understand the light to be?
I don't think I had words for that at the time. I mean, I'm sure I thought, well, I've always believed in the other worlds, the other across the veil. I've always felt the connection there. And I know it's all source. I know we're all connected as one in source. Yeah, I think I've always known that. Don't know how, but just been an awareness.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And the feeling that was coming from this being, how would you describe it in the limited human vocabulary that we have?
Well, I always say he had all the divine masculine principles of protective and caring and supportive and loving and wise, and there was just this sense of radiating love as I'm between these two rows of monks. I can just feel their care for me. They're wanting for me. Their sense of grounded and safe, and we're here to guide and support, and that was such a wonderful feeling, because I have not had, except for my grandfather, my mom's dad, I did not have safe men in my life. So this was very interesting to have these men show up for me in this way. And as I'm conversing with this monk on the front left, I'm looking inside his hood, where his face is, and there's no face. It's like atoms moving. And as I'm looking at it, it feels normal and natural. It doesn't feel odd or strange or, ooh, what's that? It was like, oh, yeah, of course. And he's speaking inside of me, and I'm speaking inside of him. There was no outside sound. I wasn't making sound out loud. He wasn't. It was all inside of us. And that felt totally normal. Like, oh, yeah, this is how it works.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on this? I'm so fascinated with telepathy because we've had conversations on this show about how this is starting to come online for humans. There are the nonverbal autistic kids, young adults who have evidentially proven that they're telepathically communicating with others and their loved
Yes,
ones in these places.
yes.
So is it as simple, Diane, as saying, hey, how are you doing today? And you hear those words in your mind, hey, how are you doing today? Or is it more than that?
Well, I think that's the beginning of it. And yet it's deeper than that. I know for me, um, when I communicate with the other side, when I'm communicating for my clients, I ask questions directly of source. And, the feedback that I'm getting inside of myself, and it's a knowingness that I'm hearing it. So I think it's just the natural way our spiritual beings interact. It's just in human form. We look at it and we go, what is that? Can I trust that? Is that normal? Am I crazy? And in the beginning, here was my first experience. My sister and I went to dinner in this restaurant less than a week after my surgery. I'm still on crutches. And we're standing, and we'd been to this restaurant many times. It was a comfortable place for us, It was a Sunday night. And I'm hearing all of this cacophony of sound as we're standing there waiting for a table. And it's like, what is that? And as it's getting closer, more defined, it's people's thoughts and emotions, and they're just flying at me, and I'm hearing all of them. It's from everybody that I'm seeing in the restaurant. all of their feelings and emotions are now talking at me. And I'm going, oh my God, am I losing my mind? Am I becoming schizophrenic, psychotic? Well, what the hell is happening? And it was explained to me that I was coming online with gifts to be able to perceive in different ways. And that was shocking to me because it so overwhelmed my system. I'm a sensitive, I'm an empath, I'm an introvert. Uh, and having all of that come at me at one time was so overwhelming to my system that I was shutting down. I was on overload. But I was also fascinated to feel their feelings and have that kind of deep connection because I hadn't been able to have deep, deep connection with people because people weren't where I was within myself, my awarenesses. I'm also Scorpio, which is very deep. And all of a sudden, I'm getting to hear and interact with those feelings and thoughts and whatnot. And it was like thrilling, but overwhelming and scary. You know, be careful what you ask for.
That makes sense too. Let's go back to the monks for a minute. I'm super fascinated by this because I've never talked to anybody who had two lines of monks show up in their near death experience. And this makes sense because you had this religious background.
Yeah, it was analogous for me.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about, you've had a lot of time to process this and think about it and talk to your spirits on the other side. What were the monks?
Well, there's sort of a support team in a way for me. Um, I get the feeling that we were in the halls of the Menti.
Oh, interesting. Will you
Yeah.
explain that to people who don't understand what that means?
Well, my understanding is that's where the Akashic records live, and it's kind of the housing of all the wisdom, and it felt like they were the protectorate of all of that and the guides of all of that. And I did realize when I was in their company that I could have a thought about anything and immediately have the answer. I could think about anything in the universe and have the answer while I was there with them. So, and I never really sat down and had a conversation with my guides about all of this or my angels. I just took it on face value and never really went into the depths of it until somebody said to me, well, what did it physically look like? Because I focused on the room that I was in, right? But in that energy, I know you're aware that you can go back into that energy a bit. I'm seeing, the archways and the it was ancient and it was familiar at the same time, very European, um, Italian, almost looked Italian, so maybe Roman, I don't know, but old, thick walls, and the colorations were in the flesh tones and the siennas and there were beams and it was just I think the feeling for me is that it was important. It was an important place. It's like walking into the Vatican, the vastness of all. That's what this felt. It felt vast and important and, big things go on here kind of thing. Don't know what that all means. It's just that sense of it.
Since you had the access to all knowledge where you could ask a question and it would be immediately answered, do you have any memory of any of the questions that you asked?
Well, the process wasn't asking. I had a thought about something and then it immediately came. There was no, I need to ask this or I want to, yeah. Um, it was just that sense of all knowing. I don't remember per se anything in particular that I thought about that I got an answer to. It was more of, I know everything I need to know. I will always know everything I need to know. Now, coming back into human form, that's not a given. But through the years of the work that I've done and the teachers that I've had that have guided me to do certain works, um, when I get into the questioning mode with source, with my clients, I am trusting that that's direct contact and that the information is fully coming through. It's like somebody would say to me, well, can you talk to my relatives or any of my relatives around? Anybody have word for, and I tell them I am not a medium. I don't think of myself as a medium. But in that space and time, from time to time, I am able to just ask and the information comes. And because I think of the original experience, I don't question it. I trust it because of how it feels in my body.
Sure. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So let's go back to when your gifts and these abilities that you didn't have before your NDE started to come back online. So you're sitting in the restaurant. Is it kind of like, you ever been, and this is for the people in the audience as you're listening to, have you ever gotten on a phone call where there is an echo that repeats everything
Yeah.
and you almost can't talk because it's messing your ability up to think and connect to your words because you're getting these other thought forms at the same time, even though it's your reverberation coming back? And it just almost stops you from talking because you can't think at the same time and listen at the same time because it's all kind of stepping over one another. Is this the type of experience that you're having, or is it more
No,
clear?
it's much more clear than that. And because it was a new feeling for me, a new experience for me, um, one of the things I did realize is that it didn't keep me from feeling. Now, I hadn't felt my connections, my awarenesses, myself as deeply before this experience. Okay. So I was coming online to being aware of my own feelings in a much bigger way. So this was just amplifying their feelings. And, it wasn't keeping me from being in touch with me so much as it was just overwhelming me because I thought, I must be losing my mind.
Right.
There's something radically wrong with me. What happened to me? Was it the anesthesia? Did I have brain surgery? So it was such a new phenomenon and it was so big physically, because I'm so sensitive and feeling and hearing all that. It was just so big. And it took me a long time to process what that was, why I was hearing and feeling it, and what to do about it. And that's where, teachers came in.
Of course. And I feel like it's one of those things that the person that you need appears when you need them.
Exactly.
So I'm curious about this. You're in a neutral space, and I mean neutral in that it's not necessarily rigged to be positive or negative. It's not like you're in a bar in a brawl or something. You're in a restaurant.
Right.
Overwhelmingly, in that course of people who are there, are you experiencing emotions that are more on the positive side, more on the negative side, or more neutral?
Well, in picking up their stuff, it, so much of it felt negative.
It did.
Yeah, felt sad and overwhelming. Yeah. I'm listening to
Interesting.
people's stories in their heads. It's almost what the monkey mind is talking to them about, which we know is negative. It's not positive. And that's kind of what I was hearing and their response to those stories. There was a lot of sadness. And that I think was the part that hurt the most was feeling that, you know. If I had heard joyfulness and all of that, that would have been a different experience. But this wasn't. And I think that's where I started realizing that I'm hearing them because I need to help them. on some level. And I didn't know what that meant. I'm
What about
connected to them.
what about your sister? Could you hear her thoughts?
I think I had always heard her thoughts. Yeah.
So fascinating. So as you're going through this, almost what probably felt like an emotional breakdown to you, at what point did you realize that you had even had a near-death experience, because this was not a mainstream, probably a thought that you would have had?
When I got to one of the teachers who sat me down and said, "This is the skinny on what you've been through and why." And that was like, wow. Also, at the same time, I had watched, and I don't remember the man's name. It was a TV talk show. And the reason I had it on is my daughter was home from school because she'd had an asthma attack at school. And I brought her home and, she was kind of recuperating and whatnot. And Shirley MacLaine was on this man's talk show. And she was talking about the book she'd written called Out on a Limb. And she was talking about her spiritual experiences. And as she's talking, I'm going, uh, 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 that's me. I knew exactly what she was talking about. Somebody who speaks this language and talks about these kinds of things, because everybody else in my life, I mean, I couldn't even tell my sister. She would have just not understood at all. Because
Wow,
she
that's
lived in her head. She didn't live
sure.
in her body like I did.
Interesting. So, what do you do with this information once you realize what has happened? How do you process and integrate it? And is there anybody that you were brave enough to tell about?
As far as friends and close,
Yeah,
no,
anybody
no,
in your life.
no, no. The new people that I was meeting, the two women that I was drawn to, they were my lifeline for understanding. And one of them, it was weird at that time when there would be a new book, um, it would go around to the different people who were connected to spirit, and they'd tell each other. And there was a book that came out called Agartha, Journey to the Stars. I don't even remember the book. I just remember that I was told I had to read it. And it explained a lot of things to me.
When you were told you had to read it, were you told by your spirit team or by somebody else outside of that?
No, by one of the ladies that I was working with. She said, "You've got to read this. This is important information for you."
Do
And
you
that was a
think
big deal.
do you think it's still relevant for people today, that book?
I have no, I, I can't even tell you what's in that book anymore. I mean, I'm a totally different person now than I was then.
Of
I've
course.
lived lifetimes since then. So
Yes.
don't know. It'd be interesting to go back and read it. I do remember this much. Now, I've got dyslexia, so that's part of it. But I would be able to read like a half a page and then I would go out like a light. It's like the information was so big for me, I couldn't process it.
That is interesting. Almost like a protection. Do you know, it's funny that you say that? I know a little bit about the brain and how the brain processes information and stores it. They did all these studies on kids in college, and they sleep deprive them. Like, they let people stay up all night, pull all-nighters to study for tests. Then they had other groups that would read the information, get a full night's sleep, and take the test. And even the ones that studied for less amount of time were able to integrate and store that information more accurately than the ones who had pulled all-nighters and didn't
I
have a
get
place
that.
to process it. So it makes a lot of sense that you're saying that.
I get that. I've had that experience. Um, I even had it last night. I had planned to go to bed early and got myself to that place and blah, blah, blah. By the time I looked at the clock, it was not early. And I did not fall asleep immediately. And I thought, I really need my rest, blah, 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 blah. But what I'm realizing after years of this experience is that I need to be a little bit tired in order to allow spirit to come fully in and speak with me.
Oh, interesting. So it's
Because my
almost
ego
like you go
otherwise
into a
kind of,
daydream. If you're
what do
just
you
a
mean?
little bit tired, you know how you sit there and you just get, being a little bit tired, I feel like makes you super relaxed.
Yes. You don't have the wherewithal
Yeah.
to be overamped, or
Mm-hmm.
it's like I am really present with you right here, right now. And I needed to have whatever that was last night to be here
How
so that I wouldn't
beautiful.
overthink and
Mm-hmm.
overdo and overreact. And, I could just hang.
Okay, so you've got these abilities now that have been coming online. And when was the first time that you remember getting information that you knew without a doubt you were able to confirm and it was not coming from you, like evidential evidence?
Well, when my daughter was 8, 7 or 8, we were going to the allergist for her asthma and whatnot. And we'd be in this elevator. It's a small medical building. And we'd be in the elevator, and I would invariably turn to the person next to me or behind me before I got out and say something to them. Now, I don't know them from Adam, but spirit is like, pushing this stuff to, and I would do it. Drove my daughter crazy. Mom, how could you do that? It's so embarrassing, blah, 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 blah. What makes you think you know that? Blah, blah, blah. I could not do it. So I had to trust, and at that same time, I started learning to do automatic writing. And that was probably a really good tell for me, because in doing the automatic writing, I would write down my concerns. It was always about me and my concerns, right? I'm struggling with this, blah, blah, blah. This is happening. What do I do? And I would just write all that out. And then I would just quiet myself for a minute. And then I'd hear the words start. And I would just scribe them down as fast as I could. I didn't even know what was being said. I just got it down on paper. And then after that, I would go back and read it. And it was a different type of verbiage than I would use, different cadence, different everything, different handwriting. And I realized, there is something major here, and I just have to honor it and stop being so silly about it. And it took me a long time to get there.
I would imagine, especially because now it's not far fetched at all. There's so much information. We have the internet, we have all of these people that are talking about these experiences that we can connect to. So it's got to be super different before all of that was around. So, who did you understand the information was coming from? Because if it's not in your voice, your cadence, and your handwriting, my first thought was wondering if it was your higher self, the higher version of you, but it sounds like maybe it was somebody completely outside of you.
Well, I found that as I continued that, and I did it for years, I was writing with Mother. And Mother, I thought was Mother Mary, because that was my take. But it turned out that it is a collective of all the major feminine deities called Mother.
Like who would you put in that category of feminine deities just so that we get a flavor for this?
Kuan Yin would be one. So any major Shiva, any of the that you would think of, the divine feminine. And it's interesting because in my work that and my life, that has been people's response to me, is there's this mothering thing that happens in my work for people. And it's because of the collective that speak through me. Because when I'm working, I am consciously channeling. A long time ago, I learned to physically channel because I thought I needed higher connection and better whatever. And so I did that for a while, and I realized it just doesn't feel like me. And then I became a conscious channel where I'm just online. And when I do speakings, in front of people and whatnot, I will speak for a couple seconds, and then I can feel spirit stepping in and speaking with me, because I was terrified of public speaking. And I used to get this vision. They would send me this vision all the time of of an upholstered wingback chair. And I'm sitting in it in front of this huge audience. And it just terrorized me to think of doing that. And Spirit kept saying, we're going to be speaking with you. You're not going to be there alone. What are you afraid of? It's okay. We're going to do this together. And I finally got it because I could physically feel it, and I could
What
hear
did
my
it
voice.
manifest into?
What did it manifest into?
Yeah, like they showed you the upholstered chair and the audience. Did you have an experience where you were having deja vu? Like, oh my gosh, or do
No,
you think it was just a representation of your message going out to thousands of people?
I think it was a representation. And, I've done a lot of speaking engagements through the years, but they've never been as vast as that audience was. And as I'm getting more aware of stuff again on a different level, it's my presence, and it's not me personally. It's the collective's presence with me that people respond to.
Beautiful. I would imagine. So I said in the introduction that at one point in time, you were really involved in the Catholic religion and you considered being a nun, but this NDE changed you and changed what you understood about religion. So would you care to elaborate on that to help us just understand what you uncovered?
Well, I was in my last year of high school was a Catholic girls' school, boarding school that had a convent school attached to it. And it was the first time I had lived away from home. And it was a difficult time. My parents were going through separation and whatnot. And there was a lot of upheaval in my life. And I just felt very supported and nurtured by the nuns that I was with. I had gone to Marymount previous to that, the first 3 years of high school, and did not feel that with them, but I did with this group of nuns. And because of I don't know, this feeling I've always had internally about this connection in my heart to God. And I've always talked to God when I was a kid, it was my patron saint, guardian angel, Um, that was normal for me, you know? And when I had my near death experience, um, my daughter was in Catholic school at the time. And I realized in my near death experience that all the things that I had grown up with and believed in were overshadowed by the fear that was taught, by the control that was taught, by the control of women because of its being so patriarchal. And I realized it was not the supportive, loving place that I felt inside that I felt connected to. What I felt connected to superseded religion. And in the near death experience, I found out that God does not judge us on any level, which the church, you've got comfort, you've got confession, for heaven's sake. No, God doesn't judge us on any level and doesn't have an agenda for us. It's only pure love. And I thought the church lies. All religion lies about what it means to have a connection with God. We don't need to go through some man to have that. We just need to connect within our own hearts because it's in our heart is the connection. And I had to walk away. And I've been back to the church a couple of times. I guess it was about 5 years ago. I went to Christmas Eve Mass. I thought, I'll just give it a shot. It was all fear and punishment and it's like and judgment. And I thought, why are they still stuck in this? This is not what it's about. It's about unconditional love. That's what Jesus was preaching. He wasn't preaching any of this nonsense. Why haven't they evolved past this place? So I had to walk away and say, that's not in my. So spiritual places I will go to, you know, I'm more in mindfulness than anything. And I, I think it's fine because I think religion is a way to get to God, but it's not the answer. And it should not be controlling, and it should not be there are rules and regulations that you have to follow. And if you don't, you're out. And it's like, no, we have to create our own relationship, our own way of being with God, spirit,
Yeah.
source, the universe, whatever you want to call it.
It's interesting that you mentioned the control of women with the church, which is evidence in a lot of ways, but that you have this feminine essences group of powerful female archetypes that you connect with. What have they taught you about the role of the feminine on the planet?
Well, this will probably get me in trouble, but
I'm laughing. Sorry. I don't mean to laugh like it's funny, but it's just always ironic where these conversations go.
and I'm fine with it. I have nothing to protect at this state. I believe that we are goddesses on the planet, but women have this ability to create life. There is nothing a man does that's kind of analogous to that. Now, I will say this, they will take a bullet for us. We won't take a bullet for them. That says a lot. And the fact that they're willing to do that for us, those that can, I so honor and am in awe of that because I don't quite understand. But I think there is a part of us that needs to be at the forefront, not because we're being allowed to be, but because we have the knowing. We have the intuition and connection that we use on a daily basis. I think at some point in the world, you know, people worry about the LGBTQ community. I think we're all going to be the same, whatever that is, non-defined, non-sexual beings. I think we're just going to be one, whatever that turns out to be. And that's a good positive thing, not a negative thing. So why we're so invested in this is right and this is not, and who's going to tell somebody who they have the right to love?
Love is
Not I,
love.
not I. Yeah, love
Love
is
is
love.
love.
It comes in all kinds of forms. If you look at what's on the internet today, you see all these wonderful creatures that are finding love with odd pairing creatures, you know?
Yes, I have a whole book that I read about all of these animal relationships where they were not supposed to be with that type of animal,
Right,
hippo and a chicken or whatever it was,
right,
right?
right, exactly. And they're showing it, you know, it's like dogs have always been teachers in my world. I just believe that the creatures are so far ahead of us. You know, they use all of their senses. They're in constant contact with their high self, their intuition. That's how they live their lives. We're just trailing behind. So I just think we've got to get over ourselves and our judgment and just allow everybody to find what feels right to them. As long as you're not hurting somebody else with whatever it is you're doing, I say have at it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
So,
judge somebody. I know how many weird things and weird thoughts and places I've been in my world. I'm not going to judge anybody else's exploration of their lives.
so what do you think from your perspective that God or source is?
The source of love, all love. And I think we're here to play. I think we're here to have fun. I think we're here to be curious and examine and experience and try on and and I don't think there's an agenda of stuff we have to get done. There's nothing we have to do and have to get accomplished? I don't believe that we do. I think for those who come in and say, hey, I made a mistake, I'm getting out of here, and they go, I think that's okay too.
So for the Catholic religion, they invested very heavily in this punishment system, and so much talk about hell, the devil. I see all kinds of things in the comments. And I was in that place once a very long time ago where I was part of the organized religion and bought into a lot of those things. So I think when I say, and I talk about this, and you say, we're here to play, we're here to experience, we're here to have fun, then you get all of the, but what about? And you know what I'm talking about. What about this bad thing that's happening, this bad thing, that bad thing? So from your perspective, how do you understand all of those other and the but?
Well, I hear people saying, why does God let these things happen? Why does God do these things to people? I'm not in that camp at all. I don't believe that God does anything to us. I think God has our back 24/7. I think it's a loving universe. I think we have all the support in the world. We have to get on board with ourselves. It's our own negative thinking, our own lack of loving ourselves that creates this vibration of, I'm not good enough, I'll never get where I want to go, I'll never have my turn, and why am I always the victim? And I was the consummate victim before I had my near-death experience. I went to church and prayed to God a couple of weeks before I had my near-death experience, asking for guidance and help. Please, I'm divorced. I've got a 6-year-old child. My parents are dead. I don't know where I'm going. I need to switch gears in my career, and I'm just overwhelmed. And a couple of
Man, be
weeks
careful
later,
what you ask for.
yeah, that cosmic 2x4. Yeah, whoa. And that made me even more confused and more to figure out and process. But I think it's easy to blame somebody else for what's happening in your life. Life is happening to me. It's happening. It's not happening to me. It's happening through me. It's my vibration, my vibratory frequency, because we're all vibratory. We're all vibrational beings. We have to vibrate at a certain level in order to flow with our world. When we're not, then crap's going to happen. And the crap is happening to say to us, hey, if you didn't like that, why don't you try another way? Why don't you look at it in a different way? It's like our bodies, magnificent machines that they are. They have aches and pains and break down in different ways because of the dis-ease emotionally we feel with ourselves, not with the rest of the world, but within ourselves. I know how hard I have fought through my childhood trauma to not be knee-jerking at every conversation and every interaction that I have. I've spent my lifetime working on being the best version of myself so I can enjoy me.
Oh, I love that you just said that. Let's say that again. You spent the whole time working on yourself so that you could enjoy you. What does that do, Diane, in your life when you get to the point where you can enjoy you?
Oh my God, it opens everything. The synchronicities,
Beautiful.
and they
Yes.
just get bigger and bolder. And it's like, oh my God,
Yes.
guys, are you kidding? This is amazing,
Yes.
And that doesn't mean I don't go through stuff, because I'm still in human form and I still cycle in and out of my emotional garbage. But each time there's a faster awareness, there's a faster exit, there's a faster upping of the vibratory frequency, there's uh, a knowingness of, okay, let's check that one off the list. And then the next one comes. It's all about growth. But when you love yourself, and I tell my clients this, it's everything. And it's the thing we fight the hardest to do. We don't want to take the time. Oh, I love myself. I know about that. I could do that. Yeah, let's talk about it and see how well you are doing that, or how deeply involved you are with yourself. Are you even aware of yourself? It's like somebody will say to me, well, I don't know what to do about that. I don't know where to start with that. And I'll say, okay, let's do this a couple times a day. I want you to check in with yourself and ask yourself, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? You know where those live in your body. You know those answers easily. The third one is, what am I feeling emotionally? And what do I need to do for myself because of what I'm feeling emotionally? How can I lovingly support myself through whatever I'm feeling, or add to the joy of whatever I'm feeling, or just appreciate what I'm feeling?
Such wisdom in this. I'm going to ask you one more question. Because of all these experiences, you just said things are not happening to you, they're happening through you. And you also talked earlier about being able to connect with and hear the thoughts of others and the negativity, and how you had to work through letting go of victim mentality in order to get to this place where you could enjoy yourself. So will you connect the dots the best way that you can share with us what it means to be the best version of ourselves with our thoughts, and how that ties into the rest of it?
Well, there's a point in time in my life when I was bombarded by negative thoughts, and they were, constant. And I have a ruminating kind of mind, never ending. And I had to work on stopping that so that I had space to start feeling what I needed, what I wanted, what was important to me. I knew what my husband, I've been married twice, what my husband wanted always, what my daughter wanted. Never knew what I wanted. So I had to learn about that. So let me see, have I lost myself in that answer? I guess the point is when you know who you are and you love and appreciate yourself, and how hard it's been and what you've been through, and you celebrate. I tell my friends and my clients, you've got to celebrate yourself. It's like, woohoo, good for me. When good things happen, because there isn't a group of people standing next to you who are doing that. We have to do it because there's somebody in here listening. There's an inner little kid who still has trauma, who still has needs and wants, and we got to work on that and bring them online. So we have to nurture the hell out of ourselves. We have to say no to people that drain us, to people who aren't there for us, to people who are self-absorbed. And I've had a lot of that in my life. You have to be number one. This is about you in this lifetime, because you creating this amazing experience within yourself, it changes the whole vibratory frequency of the world. It ups the game for everybody. It's like when I hear people being jealous because somebody else got to do or have something wonderful that they don't, I look at that and I go, you're missing the point. When somebody gets to do something wonderful, it elevates all of us. It just doesn't go, the gift just doesn't go to that person. That gift to that person elevates all of us because we're one. We're a collective of one. So when you get on board with being excited for people's good information, good experiences, you're getting excited for you too. So when it's about love on every deep level. We can go put our hands on trees and let go of a lot of our pain and suffering. We can go be in nature and let the Devic forces just uplift us and clear us off, and talk to our guardian angels and have them do stuff that we need them to do for us to help us feel better, feel safer. We have so many things we can reach out to, but we got to start with us. What is it that my little heart is needing and wanting for me? I need to be loved. I need to be acknowledged. So I need to do that for me. I need to love me. I need to acknowledge when things are going well, when I'm doing things that support me, because it's easy to get off the track. That's why we have to celebrate us. Good for me. I did it today. I got my taxes done. I did this. I did, whatever the heck it is. Celebrate it. It's like dogs. I heard this guy talking on the internet, and he was so right. Dogs celebrate everything.
They do.
You know, when you open the door, they come running with the tail wagging. When you pick up a leash, the tail's wagging. When they haven't seen you in 2 minutes, and you come into a new room where they're sitting or something, they get so excited. So that's the way we need to live. They're teaching us. Get excited about everything.
That's great advice. Well, Diane, I would imagine that people who are watching would love to know how to connect with you. So please tell everybody how they can work with you.
I have a website called guidingyourspirit.com. And I would love it if they would connect with me there.
Okay.
And my email is Dianne, Dianne, at guidingyourspirit.com.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, I want to ask you one last question. Tell everybody what you feel from all of this experience and the wisdom and integration over all these years. What do you feel like you know for sure?
That we're loved. Oh boy, do I know we're loved. Do I know we're supported and guided and appreciated? You know, all of our wants, needs, and desires are what further the expansion of the universe. The universe knows how hard it is to be here in human form. And there's such gratitude for us that our needs, wants are a given. It's part of our birthright that our needs and wants are taken care of. And we're blocking it by not being gracious receivers. So we've got to get on board with knowing that we're not victims. Doesn't mean we haven't been hurt, but we're not victims here and now. And we can call in and know that we deserve it, know that it's a given. It has to be a given. Okay. It's not just wanting it, it's knowing it's done, knowing that of course you can have that. Of course that's yours. That's who you are. And that's how it comes in the flow, is by knowing. You don't have to be a good person. We've seen plenty of that. A lot of people having great, huge successes monetarily and otherwise who aren't necessarily good people. It's a vibratory system. You have to match the vibration of what you're asking for.
Yes.
That's all it is.
Beautiful.
So,
well, for the people who are watching, if you have comments about this, I would love to hear from you in the comments. And even if you don't have a comment, if you just want to write collective or waking up the collective, it's definitely a way that always helps all these videos. So Diane, I want to thank you. Thank you so much for being vulnerable, sharing the hard things that you know people may not completely agree with. But mostly, thank you so much for what you are doing to help wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to connect with you and feel safe and feel nurtured in having this conversation. And I'm excited. I'm excited for all of us because, you know, there's just good stuff out there if we open our eyes to want to see it and stop looking at what's not working. Always focus on what's working and build on that. Because it just creates more. So, you know, I want more people to play with who are awake and aware, right? Yes. That I can have deep conversations with and feel not like an odd man out.
Absolutely. That's the name of the game. Well, and of course, this show is absolutely nothing without all of you who tune in to watch, to listen, and most importantly, to share these beautiful experiences with somebody who needs it. And if you still have questions, you can join me for Wake Up Wednesdays live on 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for watching. There's a reason you found this video. These stories awaken something ancient inside us. Hit subscribe and stay on the path with us.